You wake up before the sun brightens the horizon. The alarm clock sounds like a military command, and your body moves out of pure automatism. You surrender your most precious time, your vital energy, the focus of your eyes, and the capacity of your mind to a gear that never stops. You produce, solve problems, face stress, and consume your own health. At the end of 30 long days, as a sort of reward for having survived, a notification flashes on your phone screen. Your salary has hit your account. For a few minutes, there is an illusory sense of relief, a sigh of freedom. But the illusion is short-lived. In a matter of days, sometimes hours, that amount begins to evaporate. It slips through your fingers, through bills, invoices, invisible fees, subscriptions, and small daily compensations. Before the middle of the month, the balance shrinks back down, and the old shadow returns. The feeling that remains is not just one of material scarcity. It is a deep existential emptiness. It is the painful perception that you are running on an infinite financial treadmill where the finish line never changes. If you decide to save radically, cutting out leisure, good food, and moments of relaxation, your life turns into a gray desert of deprivation, generating a frustration that suffocates your soul. If, on the other hand, you decide to live for today intensely and spend without breaks, anxiety about tomorrow becomes a monster that won't let you sleep at night. You find yourself trapped between two destructive extremes: severe asceticism that robs the present of its color, or reckless hedonism that sabotages your future. But what if I told you that on the other side of the world, in the heart of traditional Japan, the medieval financial elite and the philosophers of Eastern prosperity discovered a hidden mathematical secret that breaks this curse definitively? This is not just another Western budgeting method focused on cold spreadsheets, punitive restrictions, or sacrificing your small happinesses. It is a philosophy of symmetrical salary splitting, designed to build solid and lasting generational wealth while simultaneously preserving and honoring your joy of living in the now. A hidden law of proportion that perfectly balances the mind, the pocket, and the human spirit. Welcome to the ancient Japanese one-third rule. To understand the impact of this rule, we must first diagnose the great lie that modern society has sold us. We have been colonized by the idea that to grow rich and achieve financial independence, we must adopt a posture of economic self-flagellation. They tell you to cut out your morning coffee, eliminate dinner with friends, cancel your refresh trip, and live like a cloistered monk until you are 60 years old. However, what modern Western psychology has discovered is that this model is biologically unsustainable. Neuroscience calls this decision fatigue and the erosion of self-control. Our brain has a limited amount of willpower per day. When you force yourself to say no to absolutely all of your desires, you build up a devastating subconscious stress. Eventually, this mental dam breaks. This is why, after weeks of extreme saving, most people suffer a compulsive spending attack, spending triple what they saved on something superfluous to anesthetize the pain of a life without rewards. You end up spending money to fill the void caused by the very act of working. The ancient samurai and masters of Eastern thought understood human psychology with surgical precision long before the emergence of modern laboratories. They knew that true strength does not reside in blind negation, but rather in the alignment and balance of opposing forces. A samurai never entered a battlefield wearing armor too heavy to move with agility, nor did he go unprotected out of negligence. They sought absolute efficiency, the exact point of balance between protection and freedom. In classical Japan, wealth was never measured by the size of external display or vulgar ostentation, but rather by the harmony and stability with which a man distributed his resources across time. Faced with the dynastic crises, wars, and agrarian reforms that shook the archipelago over the centuries, Japanese society developed a preservation metric that divided a household's financial flow into 3 exact, immutable, and symmetrical paths. Not one coin more to one side, not one coin less to the other. Symmetry that protects your future, honors your current survival, and frees your mind from the anxiety that sickens today's generations. The first fundamental pillar of this trinity is the third of Seikatsu. In the Japanese language, the word Seikatsu carries a weight that goes beyond a simple translation. It does not mean just bills to pay or fixed expenses. It means the dignified sustenance of life, the physical foundation upon which your existence rests. According to the Eastern methodology, exactly 1/3, or 33.3%, of all your monthly net income must be the maximum boundary allocated to maintain your survival structure. This encompasses the roof protecting your head, the food that nourishes your body, your health care, and the transportation that moves you to your duty. The practical application of Seikatsu in the modern scenario requires a posture of extreme spiritual lucidity, a concept that Easterners call chisoku, the subtle art of finding deep contentment in what is sufficient. It is not about choosing misery or living in precarious conditions, but rather deliberately designing and adjusting your life so that your physical structure fits comfortably and rigidly within this 1/3 quota. If your housing, your basic lifestyle, and your current fixed costs consume half or more of everything you earn, Eastern wisdom warns, The problem is not a lack of money, but rather the disproportionate size of your structure. You are trying to walk in the world wearing armor too heavy for your current muscles, and it will end up breaking your back. Reducing your structure to fit within the third of Seikatsu is the first step toward true economic power. The Western validation of this principle is fascinating and finds a direct echo in contemporary neurobiology through the concept of reducing allostatic load. Allostatic load represents the biological price the body pays for prolonged stress. When an individual lives without a clear safety margin, operating at the limit of their finances to pay the month's basic costs, the brain interprets this situation as an imminent death threat. The cortical amygdala, the primitive center of fear and survival in the brain, remains activated 24 hours a day, flooding the bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. This chronic state of alert harms health, destroys sleep, and blocks higher cognitive functions. The moment you apply the rule and stipulate that your survival is guaranteed and confined within a secure third of your earnings, an immediate neurological shift occurs. The amygdala falls silent. The brain understands that the danger of scarcity has been neutralized. With the extinction of subconscious fear, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logical reasoning, creativity, and long-term strategic planning, is released to operate at its maximum fullness. You stop being a creature that merely reacts to financial emergencies and become an architect who governs your own destiny. Once the base of survival is consolidated, we move on to the second force of the Trinity, the third of Toushi. In Western finance schools, the word investment usually evokes cold images of computer screens full of stock charts, interest spreadsheets, and distant bank transactions. For the Eastern mindset, however, Toushi possesses a much nobler philosophical and spiritual dimension. The third of Toushi does not exist to accumulate numbers in a digital account. It serves to buy your time back. It represents the portion of your sweat that does not belong to your present and must not be touched under any circumstances, for it is the tribute you pay to guarantee the freedom of your tomorrow. Exactly 1/3 of your salary must be sent directly to the future, without excuses, without internal negotiations, and without structural delays. In daily practice, most people make the classic mistake of spending first, paying bills next, and saving only what is left at the end of the month, which, in reality, almost always means saving absolutely nothing. Practitioners of the 1/3 rule completely reverse this dynamic of priorities. The third of Toushi is removed and shielded at the exact millisecond the money enters the account. This value is directed into real assets, solid investments, your own businesses, or structured reserves that generate compound interest. This practice aligns perfectly with the Japanese concept of nenrin, which refers to the internal growth rings found in tree trunks. If you observe the cross-section of a large oak or a 1,000-year-old cedar, you will see that it did not grow 10 meters in a week. It silently added a microscopic and imperceptible layer of wood each year, patiently enduring the harshest weather seasons. By automating the transfer of 1/3 of your earnings to tomorrow, you plant a financial forest that grows under the merciless law of time. You create an inviolable fortress that will ensure that, in the future, you do not have to sell your dignity or your precious time for a plate of food or for a job that sickens your spirit. This action surgically resolves one of the greatest knots in Western behavioral psychology, the phenomenon of hyperbolic discounting. Our brain architecture evolved in an ancestral hunter-gatherer environment where resources were scarce and highly perishable. Because of this, the human brain developed a natural and deeply ingrained tendency to overvalue immediate rewards and absurdly undervalue future rewards. This is why it is so easy to spend money on a new outfit or a feast today, even while knowing rationally that this money will be missed in old age. The brain views our future self almost as a complete stranger, an unknown person who does not deserve the sacrifice or effort of the now. By adopting the 1/3 rule as a non-negotiable identity law, you implement what psychology calls a pre-commitment mechanism. You remove once and for all the need to use willpower every month to decide whether you are going to save or not. The decision has already been made at a much deeper level. By automating the process of sending this third, you bypass the cognitive bias of immediacy, eliminating the internal debate and chronic self-sabotage that haunts contemporary man. Compound interest ceases to be a distant mathematical theory and begins to act as a real force of nature in your favor, building an unshakable heritage of stability that will cross generations and shield your family name against misery. Finally, we arrive at the third pillar, the vital component that is usually completely ignored or demonized by traditional financial theories in the West. The third of Yoku. The word Yoku translates as the field of desires, passions, leisure, and legitimate celebrations of earthly life. While Western economic puritanism dictates that desire is an enemy to be crushed and that every penny spent on fun is a moral mistake, Eastern wisdom teaches a radically opposite lesson. Honor the sweat of your own face to keep your mind sane and your spirit productive. Exactly 1/3 of all your revenue must be directed toward your absolute pleasure, without any trace of guilt. The practice of Yoku is the secret mechanism that grants the Japanese rule the unique ability to be sustained for decades on end, whereas restrictive financial diets fail right in the second or third month. If you get up every day, face challenges, study, and work hard under pressure, your nervous system needs to receive a clear signal that effort produces life, expansion, and joy, and not just the payment of endless debts and cold bills. The third of Yoku is your territory of total and unrestricted freedom. If you wish to dine at a haute gastronomy restaurant, acquire a tech item you deeply admire, buy clothes that express your true identity, or finance a trip of discovery around the world, do it with a light and peaceful heart. The only and absolute non-negotiable condition is that this spending must be strictly contained and limited within your sacred third. This approach brings the time-honored concept of Ikigai, the reason for being and living, into the core of your financial health. You begin to consume with a state of absolute presence, attention, and appreciation, completely free from that sabotaging inner voice that usually ruins your moments of rest. You know with mathematical clarity and practical security that that moment of leisure is not destroying your tomorrow and is not leaving your home helpless, because the other 2/3 of your life have already been duly honored, protected, and are executing their functions silently in the background of your reality. Western science validates the extraordinary effectiveness of this third pillar through the study of stable dopaminergic satiation. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of anticipation, desire, and reward in the brain. When a person subjects themselves to a routine of extreme and continuous deprivation, their baseline dopamine levels drop dangerously, generating a chronic state of anhedonia, anxiety, and veiled depression. This chemical emptying prepares the ideal ground for the terrible rebound effect. The individual enters a deep emotional collapse and spends in a totally uncontrolled manner to obtain a quick spike of dopamine, destroying the entire previous financial planning in a single weekend of fury. By deliberately reserving a generous portion of 33% for the celebration of the present, you keep your brain's reward circuits duly nourished, satisfied, and predictable. Your brain learns that pleasure is not a forbidden fruit obtained through guilt, but rather a planned, legitimate, and functional gear of your long-term enrichment process. Desire ceases to be a factor of disturbance and becomes the fuel that keeps you focused, calm, and motivated to produce more and more. You heal your neurobiological relationship with wealth. The Japanese 1/3 rule should not be seen merely as an arrangement of mathematical fractions or a cold accounting formula to be written down in any random notebook. It is a true sacred geometry applied to the human soul's journey on Earth. It draws a map where the three essential dimensions of our existence coexist in perfect equality, mutual respect, and pure mathematical symmetry. 1/3 is dedicated to sustaining and honoring your present through Seikatsu. 1/3 is destined to buy your freedom and protect your tomorrow through Toushi. And 1/3 is offered to celebrate the beauty and gift of life's journey through Yoku. There is no hierarchy among them. All possess the same weight and the same relevance on the scales of destiny. When you divide the fruit of your labor with this geometric clarity, the fog of financial anxiety that torments modernity simply dissipates into thin air. You eliminate the terrible guilt of spending on what you love and extinguish the paralyzing panic regarding the uncertainties of the future. You stop being a dry leaf carried by the currents of unbridled consumerism and transform into something akin to the Japanese bamboo of ancestral tales. A structure that possesses the necessary flexibility to bend before the winds of the present and savor the breeze, but which keeps its roots so deep, firm, and interconnected in the soil that no storm or global economic crisis is capable of uprooting it. Balance generates a shield that no market fluctuation can break. From the moment your next financial gain materializes in your bank account, I invite you to take a step back and immediately break the automatic cycle of immediate worry. Look at your resources not as a shackle, a punishment, or a source of pain, but rather as the representation of three pure rivers that run parallel to nourish all spheres of your concrete existence. Ask yourself the question that the great masters of the East asked before sleeping. Which of these 3/3 have you neglected or harmed in recent times? Have you suffocated your sustenance with an endless artificial life above your real means? Have you completely abandoned your future in the name of fleeting illusions and others' approval? Or have you locked your joy in a dark drawer under the pretext of a false, punitive economy? Real wealth does not consist of accumulating cold coins in a dark vault until your body loses its youth and health. True generational wealth resides in the mastery of living an existence where the pocket serves the spirit, where tomorrow is secure and today is deeply celebrated with dignity. Master the proportion of the 3/3. Govern your mind with the discipline of a warrior and the patience of a monk, and you will see that prosperity will cease to be a distant goal and become the very path beneath your feet. Subscribe to the channel to continue walking this journey of wisdom. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ancestral teachings, and leave in the comments which third you will start balancing today. See you on the next journey toward mastery.